Hi, this is Scott Marshburn with eCabinets Tips and Tricks. Today we're going to continue with the user form that we're building. That's going to allow us to import the different worksheets from the workbook that eCabinets generates when you export their cut list into Excel into our master workbook. Today we're going to be programming the import selected worksheets button there. So let's get started with that. I'm going to go into my Visual Basics editor and I want to make sure I'm in my VBA project, that is our master workbook .xlsb there. Under forms here, I'm going to double click on my user form and then I'm going to double click on import selected worksheets button there. So that's going to get our code started. We're in the click event, so I'm going to start out with some variables. The first ones are going to be for the workbooks that we're dealing with, our master workbook and eCabinets workbook that it generates. First I'm going to define my master workbook. So dim mastwb as workbook. And I need to set that. So I'm going to say set mastwb equals this workbook. And what that's going to do is by telling it to use this object, this workbook here, it's going to allow us to rename our master workbook to whatever we want or save it as a different name. The next variable is going to be for the workbook that eCabinets generates. I'm going to dim that as eCabWB as workbook also. And I need to set that. Now that one is a little bit different, and that is going to equal workbooks. That needs to be plural, and the name of the workbook spelled identically the same way that they spell it. So I'm going to start out with open parentheses, and I need quote and the name of the workbook, which is cut list. All lowercase there, in quotes and in parentheses. Now I need one more variable for our workbooks, and that is going to be for our worksheets. So dim ws as worksheet. Not worksheets, but worksheet. Now the next variables that I'm going to be doing are for our user form. I need to define a variable for our controls because we're going to be looking at all the different controls, and I need to define a variable for the caption that is in our checkbox. And I'm going to dim ctrl as msforms.control. Not controls, but control. And I need one for our caption. So dim, and I'm going to say cbcap because we're going to be dealing with the checkbox. Okay, checkbox cap, cbcap. And I'm going to define that as a string because that's just simply a string of text that we're going to be using. The next variable that I'm going to define is a variable that we're going to use along with a message box, because what we're going to do is loop through any existing worksheets in our master workbook that may already be in here and check to see if that worksheet's name is whatever we have in this CB caption here. And if it finds a worksheet with that name, then we're going to bring up a message box. And we want to be able to perform some code when we click yes or no on that message box. So I need a variable to start it off with. I'm going to say dim. I'm going to use answer. And that's going to be a string too. Now we need one more variable. When we do our loop that's going to look at the different worksheets, we need a variable that we could set to be true or false. In other words, if it finds a worksheet with the same name that is in this caption here, we need to set the variable that we're getting ready to define here to be true. So I'm going to dim ws found as boolean. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And by defining it as a boolean object there, it's basically going to let us say, okay, well, ws found equals true or ws found equals false. Now we're ready to start programming. What I want to do first is turn off screen updating. So I'm going to say application dot screen updating equals false. Now I've got screen updating turned off. I need to turn it back on at the very end of our code. So I'm just going to type that again. And this time I'm just going to say equals true. If you turn off screen updating, always be sure to turn it back on somewhere in your code. And usually that's at the very end. I'm ready to start looking at the different controls in our user form. So I'm going to use a for next loop. I'm just going to hit my tab button to indent a little bit, and I'm going to say for each control, our variable there, CTRL, in me.controls. And I got a for next loop, so I'm going to go ahead and type next CTRL. And right in here, we can tell it what we're going to do. Now, the first thing we're going to do in our loop there is we're going to look at that specific control that we're on and check to see if it's actually a checkbox or not. I need an if statement. I'm going to say if type of, and that is one word, CTRL is msforms.checkbox. And then we're going to do something. So I got my if statement. I'm going to go ahead and end my if statement, just so I don't forget it. And that's going to help us keep everything kind of situated here. So what I want to do if it is actually a checkbox, well, I want to see if it's been checked. So I need another if statement. If CTRL dot value equals true, then we're going to do something. So got my if, I need end if. And what do we want to do? We want to go ahead and trap that controls caption, which is actually a checkbox, in our variable cbcap. So I'm going to say cbcap equals, and I need parentheses, and I'm going to say ctrl.caption, and in parentheses, and that's going to put the caption of that control in this variable. The next thing I need to do is look at all the worksheets that's currently in our master workbook and see if there's one that has the same name as this. So I need a for next loop. But before I start my for next loop, what I want to do is I want to take this WSFound right here, this variable, and I want to make sure that it is set to false. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to say WSFound equals false. Now I can start our for next loop that's going to look at our different worksheets. So I'm going to say for each WS in mast WB, our master workbook, and I'm going to go ahead and type next WS. I'm getting ready to make a mistake here. I've got for each WS in mast WB. Now what's going to happen is if I leave that just like it is, we're going to get an error when we try to execute this code. Even though we have WS declared as a worksheet up here, right now the way this stands is it doesn't know to look at the actual worksheets in the master workbook. So what I need is .worksheets. Okay, so that's going to say, okay, look at the worksheets in the master workbook. Now I need to see if that worksheet's name matches whatever's in this control caption. So I need an if statement. I'm going to say if ws.name equals, and in parentheses I'm just going to type our variable cbcat, and in parentheses. And what we want to do, if it does find this worksheet, we want to go ahead and set this variable right here. I'm going to say WSFound equals true. Now, and what we want to do is go ahead and just get out of this loop. We need to stop the loop and tell it what to do next. So I'm going to say exit for. Okay, we got a for next loop, so I'm saying exit for. What we need to do next is tell it what to do if it does find this. So after next worksheet right here, I'm going to hit enter, and I need an if statement. And what we're going to be doing is a different type of if statement. Actually, I got if this, then I do not have my end if right here. I'm just about to mess up again. I need end if. So right here, after next worksheet, we need another if statement. Okay, so I'm going to say if WSFound equals true, then this type of if statement is what's called a if then else. Okay, so if WSFound is true, we're going to do something, or else we're going to do something else. So I'm going to hit enter a couple times, and I'm going to go ahead and type else, and right down here enter a couple times and end if. What are we going to do if it's true? Well, we're going to bring up our message box, and I need to start that off with our variable answer so that we can perform some code if we click yes or no. So I'm going to say answer equals, and now I can start my message box. So MSG box. Now I need to type open parentheses, and it's asking me for a prompt. I'm going to start my prompt off with a string of text, so I'm going to need quotes, and I'm just going to type the worksheet. And I'm going to hit my space bar to put a space between the next string of text that we're going to put in there, and in quotes. And what I want to do next is I want to put the actual worksheet's name that we found in our prompt here. So I need to join that worksheet's name with the string of text that we currently got right here. I need an ampersand, and I'm going to hit space, and I'm just going to say ws.name, and that's going to put the worksheet's name in there. Now I need space again, and I'm going to join the rest of our prompt to what we already have here, so I need another ampersand and space, and this is going to be a string, so quote, and I'm just going to hit space again, and I'm going to type already exists, do you want to overwrite the existing data in this worksheet, and in quotes there. Now I want what's called a VB yes no message box, so I'm going to hit comma, and you can see all the different selections that we have here. Notice that they all start with VB, so I can just simply start typing VB, and when I hit Y, it's going to highlight VB yes no, and I can just hit tab. Now I want a title for a message box, so I'm going to hit comma, and you can see right here title is in bold, so I can type my title, and that of course is going to be a string, so I need quotes, and I'm going to say this worksheet already exists, and in quotes. Now I'm done with my message box. I need to finish it off with close parentheses, and if I got all my syntax correct, when I hit enter I will not get any errors, and that is good. Now what do we do if we click yes? I need a if statement, because we're going to say if answer equals VB yes, and you do need VB yes, just plain old yes will not work. Then we're going to do something. Okay, now this is going to be another if then else. So I'm going to hit enter again, and I'm going to type the else, and enter one more time, a couple more times there, and end if. Now what are we going to do if we do click yes? Well, we want to clear out the existing data that's in our worksheet here that we found. So I'm going to say ws dot used range, and I'm going to say dot clear contents. And that's all we need to do to wipe out all the data in that worksheet. Now what we need to do is copy the new data from the worksheet in eCabinets workbook there that has the name that is in our variable CBCap. We need to copy all that data back into this worksheet here. So I'm going to say eCab WB dot sheets, and in parentheses here I need to tell it what sheet to look at or look for, and that is going to be whatever's in the CBCap variable. So now we need to tell it what to copy. We're going to copy the used range dot copy, and we need to tell it where to copy to, and what it wants is it wants a destination. So I'm going to type the word destination, and I need colon and equals. Now what's it going to equal? Well, obviously it's going to equal the worksheet dot range. Okay, we need to tell it the range, and the range is going to be in parentheses here the very first cell that is in that worksheet, which is quote A1, and in quote and close parentheses. Now we need to tell it what to do if we click no. We click yes, do this, or else do something else. Well, I just simply want to remove the check that is in that checkbox, and that's all I want to do. So I'm going to say ctrl dot value equals false, and that's going to clear that out. Now we've taken care of the situation that this worksheet already exists. If it cannot find one, we need to tell it what else to do. What we want to do is actually copy the entire worksheet that is in this CBCap here, that worksheet's name, into our master workbook. We don't want to copy the data. We want to copy the entire worksheet. So I'm going to say eCab WB dot sheets, and in parentheses again I'm going to tell it what sheet. That's going to be CBCap dot copy. We want to copy it after the very last worksheet that is currently in our master workbook. So I'm going to need after and colon and equals. Copy after what? The master workbook dot sheets, And now we need to count the sheets. And in order to do that, I'm going to say parentheses and masked WB again, dot sheets again, and count, and in parentheses. And that's going to get everything working for us. Now, what I want to do is reactivate the home page. And I also want to close out the user form. So the first thing I want to do is unload the user form, and that is just simply typing unload me. And that's going to close the user form. And now I need to reactivate the home page. So I'm going to say masked WB dot worksheets, and I need to tell it the worksheet name, so parentheses and quote, and the name of the worksheet I want to activate spelled exactly the same way it is in our tab there. So home in quotes and close parentheses, and now I need to tell it to activate it, so dot activate. And that should work. So let's test out our code and see what happens. Maybe we won't get any errors. I'm going to click on my button here. I'm going to go ahead and select all of them and import selected. And you can see that instantly, I mean almost instantly, put all 14 worksheets in our master workbook. Now I want to test out the fact that we may be updating some of these and make sure that's working properly. So what I want to do is I want to go into our cut list here that eCabinets generates, the workbook, and I'm just going to work with the cut list summary and maybe the board stock summary. I want to make some changes. I'm just going to simply type the letter A and copy that down. I'm going to come into my board stock summary and I'm going to do something a little bit different on it. I'm going to say B and copy it down, and maybe over a few, and I'm going to come down here and do the same thing. So let's go back into our master workbook and bring up our form again. I'm going to click on U and U. So import selected, and there's our message box, and all that looks pretty good. I'm going to click yes, and now it's saying that the worksheet board stock summary already exists. Do you want to overwrite the data? Yes. Close out the form, and let's see. That works good. That one worked, and that one worked. Now let's check out what happens if we click no. I'm going to come back in my cut list summary, and I'm just going to clear these out. Let's go ahead and clear this out too. Delete and delete. Back into our master workbook and our home page, and this time I'm going to select both of them, but I'm going to say yes for our cut list summary and no for our board stock summary. So what should happen is all this should be gone in our cut list summary, and all this in our board stock summary should remain intact. So if everything's working properly, that's what's going to happen. So import selected. Yes, I want to overwrite the cut list summary, but no, I do not want to overwrite the board stock summary. Let's see if it worked. All our A's are gone, and all that's still intact, so all that's working real good. So that'll wrap it up for this video. I hope this video helped you out. If it did, how about giving me a thumbs up, and make sure you stay tuned for my next video where I'm going to be programming the delete selected worksheets. And that being said, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, make sure you subscribe so you can get all my latest tips and tricks. And as always, thank you for watching, and have a good day.